Breaking news tonight, Donald Trump's first criminal trial is still on track to start 1 week from today after a New York appeals court judge just rejected his new motion for a delay. CNN's Kara Scannell is outside the courthouse in New York for us. Kara, you heard these arguments. Tell us what this means for Trump.
Well, the trial is on. Jury selection will begin 1 week from today on April 15th. Now, this is after Trump's legal team had made an emergency motion asking the judge to put off the trial, to postpone it so they could argue that they need a change in venue. Trump's lawyers saying that the pretrial publicity in New York is just saturated the market, and that they've done a survey of Manhattanites. That's where the pool of jurors will be selected from, and saying that the majority of them thought that Trump was biased. Well, the prosecutors opposed that argument. They said that Trump was making this argument far too late, just 1 week before the trial is set to begin. They also said that the place for the judge and the jury to be decided if this jury could be fair would be in voir dire. That's when the judge carefully polls and questions all of the jurors, and there's participation from Trump's lawyers and from the prosecutors. And they also said about publicity, they said this case is not limited to just Manhattan and New York City. It's an international story. One of the attorneys for the prosecution, Stephen Wu, said to the judge, the mere fact that jurors know about this case is not an indication of bias. This is the defendant coming into this argument with unclean hands because publicity, in large part, is his own making. Now, Trump's lawyers are also asking an appeals court to reverse the gag order that was put in place, blocking Trump from making comments about the judge, his daughter, other family members, prosecutors, the prosecutors themselves. But the judge and Alvin Bragg, the DA, are still free for Trump to speak of. But they're also appealing that order. We're expecting arguments in that to be tomorrow. But for now, this trial is on for next Monday, Wolf.
All right, we'll see what happens. Kara Scannell in New York for us. Thank you. Let's get some more right now with our legal analysts, Carrie Cordero and Norm Eisen. Norm, what's your reaction, first of all, to this appeals court judge rejecting Trump's latest effort to try to pause the case and move it to a different location?
Wolf, it's to be expected. In fact, in my book coming out this week, Trying Trump about this case, I predicted that Trump would attempt to use this action. It's known as a Section 230 motion. You go directly to the appellate court, not the trial judge. You say, hey, too much pretrial publicity, move this case. Of course he was going to try it. By my count, it's his 9th delay tactic, Wolf, because he's very nervous about facing a jury on these allegations of election interference. But it wasn't going to work, because Donald Trump himself is responsible for so much of the pretrial publicity. The judge also released a very detailed juror questionnaire today, where jurors are going to be asked about dozens of potential sources of knowledge about the case, and using that questionnaire and then interrogating the jurors in that courtroom is how you will screen for bias, not moving the case. It was a dead loser from the get-go.
And he did lose that appeal. Does Trump, Kerry, have any other avenues to try to delay, or can we definitively now say Trump's New York criminal trial will begin next Monday?
It certainly seems like it's on the path to for Monday. There is this outstanding issue, as Kara was reporting, on the gag order. And so we do need to wait to see how that hearing goes tomorrow. But that would really govern the conduct of the trial and what he can and cannot say during it, not necessarily whether or not it goes forward. So I think all things look in the direction that jury selection really will begin a week from today. But I think it will be a lengthy and very intense jury selection process.
I think you're right. Norm, Trump is also suing the New York judge over the gag order he imposed on him. Lay this out for us.
Well, it was a 1-2 punch today, Wolf, and the lawsuit against the judge, as strange as that may sound, is actually allowed under New York law. It's called an Article 78 action, and it's when you think a judge has done something that is so wrong, so illegal, that you sue him to get an appellate court to consider it before the trial has concluded, before the usual course of appeals. The problem with Donald Trump's Article 78 action is the same one that afflicts the vast majority of them. They almost never work. And here, the gag order that has been put in place follows that has been approved by other courts, by Judge Engoron in the civil fraud case against Trump, by the D.C. Circuit in the 2020 election interference case. It accords with First Amendment principles, and we've seen the threat that Trump's words can constitute most dramatically, as alleged by Jack Smith on January 6th. The appellate court is very unlikely to strike down that gag order. Could tweak it, like the D.C. Circuit did, but they're not going to strike it down.
Carrie, are you surprised Trump is taking this step, suing the judge? And what could that mean for the case?
Well, it is. I mean, it's a specific thing to New York, as Norm was describing, and an avenue that he has available to him. I think his approach in these cases, and it's pretty evident, is the fact that he will direct his attorneys to take every single possible potential legal avenue that there is to try to take things off course on the trial, or at the very least delay them. And so if this was a potential legal channel available to him, then it seems like he would direct his attorneys to go ahead and try that, even if after time it determmines that it is unsuccessful.
Carrie Cordero and Norm Eisen, to both of you, thank you very much.
So let's bring in senior legal analyst for CNN, Ellie Honig. Ellie, what's your reaction to this ruling?
Well, Jake, as expected, I think it was 20 minutes ago or so, I said to you that I think it's unlikely Donald Trump succeeds on this venue motion. Now, he has not succeeded for the time being, and for a couple reasons. First of all, as Paula said, this motion has already been made. It's too late to bring it up to an appeals court now. And second of all, just looking at the propriety here of charging this case in Manhattan, this is where the crime occurred, the alleged falsification of business records. Prosecutors do sometimes play games and try to charge a case in a district where a small part of the conduct happened to get a more favorable jury pool. That's not what's happening here. This case almost had to be charged in Manhattan. And finally, as judges often recognize, if there are jurors or potential jurors who are very biased against the defendant, that's what jury selection's for. It's a whole weeding out process. And so it's no surprise that this one judge on the Court of Appeals, has denied the motion for now.
Are you surprised by how quickly the judge ruled?
Well, this was an emergency procedure. I mean, the argument started at 3:45, so I'll say yes. This is, an hour and change after that. This was quick, but I think it shows recognition by judges in New York State that this thing is meant to start April 15th, and they seem to have very little patience for Trump's Hail Marys here.
All right, Ellie Honig, thanks so much.